This is Jake Seeley, and I'm the blown ACL that ruins your football season.
Good news, everyone! Let's get dangerous.
This is so cool!
I know!
It feels so right! It's Jake Seeley.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Nice try, Moonman. Pretending not to know. Greatest mastermind! You just made the list!
I thought you said that was a myth.
Just because it's a myth doesn't mean it's not true.
If you all blindly follow my plan, we may have a chance.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
Game on, you Ducks. Did you happen to have a better Week 7 than I did? Or was it looking super green and started out with a nice lead, facing another team that only scored 2 points, or just all your studs are ready to roll, and then it just went downhill? Was it one of those weeks? I mean, I'm looking back, and I made a list. Sorry, I did that incorrectly. I made a list!
You just made the list!
And I also squeaked my voice on that. Anyway, I did. I made a list, and just these are some of the names that barely scored 10, or most of them way under 10 fantasy points in Week 7. Drake London, Xavier Worthy, DK Metcalf, as you guys already knew from Thursday, Marvin Harrison, Quentin Johnston, Pickens, Justin Jefferson, Krosky Merritt, Genty, Kamara, Barkley, Vidal, Etienne, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Caleb Williams, Jordan Love. This was a rough week. I'm pretty sure I won 2 leagues out of my managed ones. I don't know about the best balls, obviously, because of those, but I feel your pain is my point. It was a rough one. There were some really big scores, and it was one of those weeks where so many people were just a disappointment that it was tough to overcome if you did face a 30-point game from somebody. But anyway, let's talk about Week 7, and we'll go to London, baby. London, baby. First off, this is the last time I can say it this year. Fortunately, no more London, baby. The Rams' answer at wide receiver was nobody.gif. If you've ever seen me on Sundays, just picture me pointing and laughing. Nobody. Although, I'm not laughing, because if anybody desperation start of Whittington wasn't the answer. Tutu Atwell didn't play a lot of that game. Mumpfield, if you were desperate. I saw somebody out there that played a bet on him, and congratulations to you. But the real answer was obviously just Pepper, Devontae Adams, and 18 tight ends. So when Puka Nacua comes back after the bye, which, by the way, Cardinals, Lions, Jaguars, Rams, Raiders, well, they're essentially been on a bye, and Seahawks all have a bye this week. It is bye-mageddon, bye-apocalypse, whatever the bye crap you want to call. It's stupid NFL doing what they do. On the other side of the ball, Travis Etienne has kind of been seeing a downturn over the past couple of weeks. He will be in the worry report, even though with the bye coming up, because Bashaw Tutin's starting to creep in. But the good news, Travis Hunter, his best game of the season. They talked about him becoming the number 2. We had seen the usage as the number 2. He is definitively the number 2. Finally, it only took until their bye for us to get there. More from other games, Kyle Monangai seeing more of a share, but DeAndre Swift just continues to have another big game. But something to watch, we might be able to get Monangai value again. 6 teams on bye. It is Ben Johnson. We've been waiting for this because Ben Johnson loves some 2 running backs, as we saw with the Detroit Lions. So maybe Monangai is not coming for DeAndre Swift's job, to be clear, but maybe Monangai can get you some value as a desperation RB3, especially with the potential for a decent share with a matchup on paper that looks really good with the Ravens coming out of their bye, but it is the Ravens coming out of their bye. And would anybody really be shocked if the Ravens all of a sudden looked like a serious contender coming out of their bye and everything was fixed? Probably not with the injuries, but you get my point there. The Saints, Kendre Miller was out for the second half of the game. He got hurt. And the interesting part there is Alvin Kamara essentially bell-cowed at that point forward. And it was an in-game adjustment, but it doesn't look like Devin Neal is going to get the workload that Kendre Miller had. But if Kendre Miller misses significant time, Devin Neal will be on waivers as a deep stash. And the Browns-Dolphins game, the weather was as bad as what we watched, unless you had Quinshon Judkins. A huge day for him. But the more important thing, unfortunately, is Jaylen Waddle and Darren Waller were both hurt in that game. Again, with waivers, if Waddle is out, Malik Washington will be somewhat interesting. The Darren Waller fund might already be over for how long he might be out. But it is tight end, so you can chase a lot of people at tight end, which we'll talk about in a little bit. There is a tight end we're going to talk about today. With the Titans, Tyjae Spears up to 40% of a 60-40 split with Tony Pollard. And, interestingly, 100% of the third down touches for Tyjae Spears. He's coming for Tony Pollard. As I've mentioned times before, could be a 50-50 split coming, but that offense is not like the Bears. It's not like the Lions. It's not like other teams where it can really support two. But again, we're talking about a 16 bye. You can't be too picky. Tyjae Spears has been in waivers for weeks, so I'm assuming he's rostered, but just in case. Kayshon Boutte, speaking of the waiver wire, yes, I said that I'm not really chasing him. And to be honest, I know people are going to be like, look, Kayshon Boutte, big game, told you it was coming. 2 targets. There was only 3 people on the entire Patriots team with more than 2 targets. Demario Douglas had 3. Hunter Henry had 4. Stephon Diggs, which I say again, buy low again, 7 targets, leads the way. I'm not counting on Kayshon Boutte keeping this up. This is basically Nick Westbrook-Akina from last year. The touchdowns are fun, and Kayshon Boutte is fun, but again, just a wide receiver 4. I know some people, look, if you have him on your roster, people are going to go crazy in a trade, sell high. The tight end I was talking about, Oronde Gadsden, and I've talked about him before when people have asked in waivers. It's tight end, so you can chase who you want and start who you want. Look, there's only about 4 or 5 trustworthy start him every single week options. One of them, again, tease for later in the show, didn't do anything this week, but that's what tight end is. After that, you're not going to have consistency week in and week out. You're going to have down games. You're going to have matchups where they're supposed to go off and they don't, and vice versa. And so anyway, point being, Gadsden's fine to chase, but this was a lot of ketchup in this game, for one thing, not mustard. And the other part of it was Quentin Johnston didn't have a ton of targets. I think that if Gadsden's going to be a thing, that means Quentin Johnston could actually fall off if you're concerned about that. But if Quentin Johnston bounces back, then Gadsden's, like, the point being is I don't see, it's not going to happen. Justin Herbert is not going to support 4 receiving options week in and week out. It's hard enough alone to do 3, as we've seen with the 3 wide receivers, let alone a 4th. So somebody has to take the back seat. It might be Johnston. Let me make that clear. Gadsden is a severe matchup problems for defenses. I liked him a lot if you read the Dynasty pieces and the draft write-up of him. Again, I'm okay to go chase him, and it might be the end of Quentin Johnston's fun. I mean, he scored a touchdown to kind of save his day, but that's just a warning. Like, I have no problem. It's not that I hate him. It's not that I love Quentin Johnston. Just to point that out. Cardinals running back situation. This is what I talked about. Who expected the Cardinals to have the lead, be in the lead, a neutral game script for most of the game against the stinking Packers? But as seen, Bam Knight is the lead when it's in that situation. The touches were 7-2 when they had the lead for Bam Knight over Carter. It was closer. It was still 2 Bam Knight's side, but it was 9-6 when they were slightly behind, or neutral game script, which again pointed to the negative one where they were actually behind for a time. Michael Carter got the only touches on that one. So more so saying like, yes, go grab Bam Knight if he's still out there. Yes, Bam Knight in a 16 bye is going to be usable. Heck, both of them might be. But again, it's going to trying to predict the Cardinals game script, which again, I'll go back and I will not predict the Cardinals to be back in front of the Packers for most of the game. Let's talk good stuff too. How about the fact that Rashee Rice is back and they're just finding the ways to get him the ball, despite the fact he didn't even run the full complement of routes in that game or snaps. Rashee Rice is back. Rashee Rice is a wide receiver 1. Not super concerned about Xavier Worthy. It's just he's going to be more of a up and down wide receiver 3 now. Brashard Smith in this game will be in waivers, but another one with this, Kareem Hunt got hurt, and it was mainly Brashard Smith after that. Also, no pass blocking, a lot of receptions, which is nice, but that's the point here is that when Brashard Smith when I covered him in the draft, I said he could be a Jerick McKinnon type, which was funny that he went to the Chiefs. If Kareem Hunt is out, Smith can be an RB3 and a half a full point PPR in the Jerick McKinnon role, but I actually don't even think he has the Jerick McKinnon upside where McKinnon had RB2 potential at any given week based on his ability and usage. Still, an RB3, and he's on the Chiefs, but also, as we've seen with the Chiefs, it's very unpredictable week to week who gets the targets and opportunities. All that being said, you can go grab Smith. How about another backfield with split touches? Chuba Hubbard was back, and Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard rotated drives. Basically rotated them the entire game. Dowdle looked better. Hubbard has the contract. They love Hubbard. And Hubbard started out fine, and everybody got concerned about Dowdle and full-on panic. SpongeBob running around with his arms flailing and screaming. And then we found out rotated drives. I wouldn't put them both in the RB3 conversation going forward. If they were On the Chiefs, they both be RB2s. If they're on a better offense, they'd be higher. But the problem is they're on the Panthers offense, so that's the issue. And the Panthers are home against Buffalo this week, which is actually a good thing. Although, similar to the Ravens, if they fix some things in their bye, I wouldn't be shocked. But the Buffalo run defense is almost non-existent. So there's a 16 bye. I'm doing it today. I always say wait for the rankings. I would not be surprised if both of them are in the RB2 conversation with 6 teams on the bye. Again, talking Cardinals, Lions, Jaguars, Rams, Raiders, Seahawks. And there's some good running backs in there, obviously. Anyway, speaking of Raiders, no Jacoby Myers. Meh across the board. Wow, that was a bad game. But Geno Smith, I mean, this offense couldn't get past midfield. The problem is they're not going to turn to Kenny Pickett, I don't think. And it's not the best option to turn to. It's not really going to spark the offense instead of Geno Smith. They come out of the bye, have a decent-ish matchup. They come out and face at home Jacksonville, but they're coming out of their bye too. But anyway, point being, fine to go buy low on Genty. Jack Bash, I'd still stash in case they trade Jacoby Myers, but as seen, this entire offense is broken right now. Maybe Brock Bowers coming back will help as well, but they are broken. Actually, you know who else is? And their offense is trash are the Jets. Jets, even with or without Garrett Wilson, it is broken right now. The interesting thing here is Justin Fields got benched. Tyrod Taylor came in. Even if Justin Fields has his job coming back, I mentioned that he was a decent benching option this week because no Garrett Wilson. It's tough to trust him even with his rushing upside. Well, it's tough to trust him any given week. They do head to Cincinnati, so it'll be interesting to see if Justin Fields is starting against the Bengals. If not, Tyrod Taylor. Either way, Garrett Wilson with Tyrod or Justin Fields will be a top 15 wide receiver if healthy, which it sounds like there was a potential, a very, very, very small potential for week 7, but enough that it sounds like he should be back for week 8, which is good. Talking to the Patriots again real quick, I forgot to mention this. Oh, by the way, Ramondre Stevenson, a bell cow now at this point. If Travion Henderson wasn't droppable enough, that made that very clear. The Giants, forget the fact that they blew that, which you guys know I don't care about the Giants anymore. I care about the fact that it was going to knock out 15% of survivor picks. Those idiots blew that. Banned kickers, by the way. He blew it too. The Tyrone Tracy usage, especially in the second half, uptick there. All in the run game, not in the receiving game. So I don't think Tracy's coming for Scatterbooch job. I've said that before. But if you are super desperate, they do get the Eagles. Not a great matchup for the backfield, especially if Carter is active and out there for the Eagles. But something to monitor with Tyrone Tracy if you need running back depth or if you want to stash him. Maybe like something could happen to Scatterboo and then Tracy will be back into the RB2 conversation. The Commanders laid a big dud across the board. Big disappointment, as I mentioned at the top of the show, for Krosky Merritt. I jinxed myself. I told you I shouldn't have said, I haven't missed a touchdown call yet. There you go. It's all my fault. Did I do that? Yeah, it is my fault. Did I do that? That was really bad. So the interesting thing, I think we do have clarity here. Luke McCaffrey, not really the thing, but if there is no Terry McLaurin and Debo plays, Chris Moore is a wide receiver 4 flyer. If Terry plays but no Debo Samuel, Jaylen Lane would be the option. And then, of course, if they're both back, McLaurin and Debo, then we're all fine with that anyway. And then before we get out of here, the 49ers, this team's wide receivers is like trying to play dodgeball on the highway. What the hell? Jauan Jennings, I mentioned this on the speed run on Friday. The dude goes with 5 broken ribs, multiple ankle sprains, and then all of a sudden off the injury report, which I guess we should have believed because he was out there running the most routes, had the most targets. So much for that Mac Jones to Kendrick Bourne connection. And I'm sure the Falcons saw that too. Falcons defense is super concerning, by the way. Not only they're really good, I talked about it, and there's no way. I would still start George Kittle every single time. The Falcons defense, 1, is really good. 2, they destroy tight ends. They have not let anybody do anything. By the way, 20 targets, 10 receptions, 99 yards, and 1 touchdown to all tight ends they've faced this year, including K-Dot and TJ Hawkinson, Zach Ertz, and George Kittle, who, by the way, had 2 targets for a big fat 0. It's not just the fact they're facing schlubs. They are doing well against good tight ends. They're doing so well that we have multiple, almost 10 tight ends who have a single-digit score or single-game score that's better than what the Falcons have given up on the year. So, anyway, Jauan Jennings, though, if he's healthy and there's no Ricky Pearsall, I guess we throw him back in there. Houston's a tough defense-ish, similar, not actually as good as the Falcons, but they're a tough defense. But Jennings, as the 1, if he's healthy, and he is healthy, is beyond frustrating, though. Just get ready to start Jennings. Watch, this is exactly, I'm going to call it now on Monday as we do this speed run. Jennings plays, starts healthy, not even on the injury report. Brock Purdy comes back, and yet Brock Purdy goes to Kendrick Bourne over Jauan Jennings, who has the bigger game, that being Bourne, and we all hate life again. Hopefully you didn't hate Week 7 as much as I did. There's a little bit of a contempt in my voice, as you can tell, and we'll be back for the long-form pod on Wednesday, and a lot more, hopefully, fun ranks that we can all get excited about, similar to the songs from last week. All right, goodbye.